Hello, and welcome to Sobercast. We provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast format. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into the virtual basket. Also, if you're a member of NA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, NAPOD. NAPOD features NA speakers and workshops in the same format as Sobercast. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for NAPOD, N-A-P-O-D, all one word, on any podcast player app, or go to napod.xyz if you'd like to listen online. Hope you enjoy the podcast and have a great day.
Okay, thanks. My name is Butch. I'm an alcoholic, and I want to thank you for having my wife and I here. This? Okay. Little joke there. Anyway, yeah, it's a real privilege to be here, and I'm honored you guys asked me to come and share my life with you as you shared yours with me, and I'm real grateful for that. Well, you heard my wife. What can I say? You know, I'm busted. No, it's a good deal. I'm glad you guys asked me. You know, the alcoholic head. As soon as someone asks you something that you haven't planned, it's like no. You know, and I've learned in this program that part of you that says no is your alcoholism, trying to get you to go out to drink again in whatever capacity. You know, so I was trying to remember that when opportunities come along for any kind of action in Alcoholics Anonymous, my head gives me the old no. It's my alcoholism trying to treat me again. You know, and it's you guys taught me that, and it's saved my life, and I want to thank you for that. Let me see. You know, I get up and just, you know, you do it at meetings all the time, so you say, I'm Butch, an alcoholic, and you just kind of rolls off your tongue, and, you know, and you just go on with what's going on. But I always like to try, when I can, remember what it takes to be able to say that out loud. You know, what a cost it is to so many people to be able to just admit to yourself that you're an alcoholic, because so many people die without being able to do that behind the same disease that I have. You know, and I am real grateful that I've gotten the chance to continue with my recovery and to make that statement on a daily basis since I first got here, and understanding more about it as it went along, because at first I didn't quite understand what the disease was that was killing me. You know, I just knew something was wrong and it needed fixing in a big way. And I met you guys, and you started sharing your lives with me and what you were doing to not repeat the behavior that I've been doing all my life. And it just amazed me, and I'm really going to thank you for that. And it's the thread we all have running through each other that saves our lives. You know, no matter what this thing tries to tell you, like, oh no, don't do that. You know, that might be too good for you. Just try and quiet that down. Well, I might as well start at the beginning, and this is going to really be slow if I don't, or really quick if I don't. I'm one of 9 children. I have 6 sisters and 2 brothers, and we were raised in Catholic religion. You have to excuse me a second. I need some water. And I'm the black sheep guy of the family, as it turns out. And being raised in the Catholic religion was, you know, I mean, however it was with you, if you were Catholic, that's fine. But for me, it had some really good points and some really bad points. I remember as a young child being in school, and they would talk about God, and they would say what I had to do to, you know, to earn like God's love, and like God would love you if you do this and you do that. And when I did that, I got a really good feeling about life, about things in general. You know, when I felt I was doing the right stuff, it just felt good to me. And but at the same time, there's so many rules, and being an aspiring, blooming alcoholic, the rules got a little hard to follow all the time. So I always had this, you know, looking back, I had this conflict going on. You know, And the longer I was, the older I got, the harder it was to like follow through with what was going on, and I took it all quite literally. So like, during the day I'd go to hell 3 times and heaven 3 times. It was like this back and forth, big emotional thing, and it just got to be where I just had to ignore the whole thing. That's just what it did to me. It doesn't do it to everybody, but that's the way I reacted. But the nice part about it is I've learned to turn that negative stuff around. And I have a higher power that works in my life today, and me and God are buds, and that's a good thing. Like I say, first, when I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and he started talking about, how we lived our life and that stuff, it dawned on me that I had never really taken the time to take a look at how I was living or what was going on with me long enough to get any kind of information about myself. I was always too busy getting through the next emotional mess or the mess I'd made. However, getting past that, trying to bury the guilt, trying to bury the remorse, and then on to the next thing. So I never took time was able to take a look at anything that went on in my life. It's not until I got to AA and got away from the alcohol that I got to take a look at what had been going on all my life and try and make some sense out of this confusion that I had going on. And I want to thank you guys for that. Because it was a lost situation. When I first got here in AA, they talked about we're like abnormally fearful in a lot of areas, and that hit home with me too. Because I remember as an early child, I had some things that happened that stayed with me all through my life that just made no sense. When I first went to kindergarten the first day, my mom dropped me off, and I was doing the deal at kindergarten, and they said, well, we take a nap in the afternoon, and so it's nap time. And so I got up and took off all my clothes but my underwear. And I was the only one in class that did it, of course, They thought it was funny, too. But I didn't, I was just like, just freaked me out. And what I did was I never went back to kindergarten. That was my last day in kindergarten. But that's just what happened with me. I would not go back. And that's, I'm like 5 years old, and I'm already doing behaviors like that, And then the first day I went to grade school, we lived right across the street from the school, and my sisters had been going there for years. I've been watching them walk across the street, with a little uniform on and doing their deal, and seemed to be fine. And I was all ready to do it too myself. I was over there the first day, waiting to go to class, and the bell rang. As soon as the bell rang, my stomach did like a 3/4 turn, and I just ran. Took off like a dart, ran across the street back in the house, and I didn't see anyone else running, doing that kind of stuff. And I kind of, well, what's going on here? But as a kid, I didn't know. I didn't know what that was all about. I know if I had had maybe a shot or two of whiskey, the bell would have been just fine. That's true. I really know that. But at the time I didn't know, and I just thought, well, that's just, odd. And I had to go back to school. My mom wasn't going to let me skip at that time because kids were moving along. Kids were coming along pretty good there. And it was my turn to get out of the house. And so I went to school and, got introduced to the nuns of love, as I like to call them. And they're well-intentioned people. They gave it their best. But like I was saying earlier, I really got that conflict going on about, God loving me and the way they kind of like expressed it from time to time. It was a little confusing to me. But I did, like I say, I got a God that I learned to reevaluate when I got to AA from that experience. Went on through grade school, and we used to live on 60th and Crenshaw in Los Angeles, and moved down towards the beach. Started going to school there, and time went on, and I kind of wasn't much of a student. I liked looking out the windows, watching the birds and stuff. I wasn't really much of I need a lot of instruction, I need if I'd have had the group of Alcoholics Anonymous around me in school to help me go through stuff, I might have done a lot better as a student, but that wasn't going on. So I just kind of they just kind of pass you from grade to grade. And got into high school, and in my early teens we started surfing, going on the beach surfing all the time, and that was a lot of fun. Love that sport. And around 15, we started, guys I was running around with, we started drinking some beer there. They had the older brothers, and we were in Manhattan Beach doing our deal, and they lived over in Hermosa Beach. the older brothers, and they would get us something to drink. So we'd walk down to Hermosa Beach and get some beer, and that's when we started our drinking. And we used to we'd get our quart of Country Club malt liquor to drink, and then if we'd walk back along the Strand drinking our beer, and if we got home without throwing up or getting arrested, it was like a successful night drinking, and it was cool. And the first time I had a drink, it wasn't any big thing to me. It wasn't, the skies didn't part or any of that stuff, but I really liked the thought that I guess I was kind of like getting away with something and not getting caught. I really liked that feeling, of being able to do that on my own. It had nothing to do with anything else that was around, and I remember that part of it. And then when I was 17, this was in the 60s. 17, just before I graduated high school. I graduated in 64, and drugs started coming from San Francisco through the South Bay. And I never questioned taking a drink, whether I should or shouldn't, and I never questioned anything about the drugs. It just was there. We just did it, and not everyone does that, So I might have had a problem way back then, obviously, but I never gave it a thought. And as time went on, it started to work for me, the alcohol, and I really enjoyed that. It does for me. I figured, well, if you could be drunk, why would you want to do anything else? So work got to be a big bother. Sad to say, but that's the way it was. It was just what happened. And what I would do is I started a deal where my dad was a general building contractor, and I grew up in the trades, and so I used to work, through the winter most of the time, and then when summer would start to come, I'd get off work and go on unemployment, collect unemployment, and surf during the summer and just mess around. I used to like to do that. But as I got older in life, I kept doing that cycle, and it doesn't work very good when you have a wife and kids. And and they actually talk about it in the big book how you work to get things built up, and then you just tear it down after a sense of sprees. And I was doing that cycle over and over and over again, and didn't even really know it. I was thinking I was doing the right thing, and anything I got in the way with that was the wrong thing. And I come to learn that there's the alcoholism right in the face. Anyway, went on with that, and drinking more, and I started enjoying the drinking a lot, and like I was saying, it got in the way of the work a lot. And let me see what I do after that. It's been a while. It's interesting. I've never followed my wife speaking before, and when I hear her talk, I relive that whole episode and all my life with her and all my drinking, and it really affects me emotionally because it's a real deal, and I'm so moved by how different my life is today. When I hear her talk, it just reminds me so much about how wonderful this life experience is we're going through right now, and it kind of like throws me a little bit. It's not a bad thing. It's just different. I'm grateful for all this. Anyway, drinking kept going on, and attitude was not improving. I traded I can't remember what it was exactly. I think it was some money in a panel truck for a car and a motorcycle, and started riding this motorcycle around this little rigid frame Triumph, a 50. I think it was 50. Yeah, had a sprung hub. Anyway, I started riding around the beach with some guys, and me and another guy were riding, headed towards Torrance, and these two girls were hitchhiking, and of course we had to politely pull over to give them a ride. And that's where I met my first wife, and I immediately fell in love because I'm not shallow, She had all the requirements of a good relationship, but that's the way it was, And we started going out, and somehow she got pregnant. I don't know. You know how those women are. And so her dad thought it would be a good idea, if we got married. Or he said, you can either go, Vietnam was going on. I said, I'll either make sure you get to go to Vietnam and be in the Army, or you have to marry my daughter. And I was, so infatuated with the love thing that I figured, well, I can either go in the Army or I can stay back and have sex with this girl. Well, what are you going to do? That's the basis of my first marriage. Real deep thinker, I'll tell you. And then when that all, we were together for a while. We had a daughter from that marriage, and she's doing really well now. She lives in Seattle, and she has two grandchildren by her, and she has a master's in severe special needs and works with kids up in Seattle. She's done really, really well. And I haven't seen her mom in a long time, but we'd always say she uses the brains that neither her nor I ever bothered to even touch. And so God bless her, and it's good, that's all right now. Anyway, when I got sober, I looked back, at that whole thing, and I was so surprised that the marriage didn't last, I said, God, looking at it now, it's kind of funny, but at the time it was just so dead serious, all the agony and the pain, my marriage is broken up, I'm not with my wife anymore, and the baby's with her, and blah, 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 It doesn't matter that, honestly, I couldn't have taken care of a kid by myself. That has nothing to do with it. You just got to use it as a reason to drink. And that's what I did. I would always use, sit around and listen to Moonlight Sonata in the dark and let's drink whiskey and wonder why things are so screwed up feeling, It's just pitiful. Jesus. But I thought it was the right thing to do. And went on with that for a while, and things were not getting any better for me. And, there was a period there when I used to try to get over and get connected with my daughter, but her mom and I were not getting along at all, and we ended up fighting all the time, so I just stopped doing that because it got to be too crazy. Anyway, went and did some other things, back to the parents' house, living there. And my sister had moved up to Alaska, and she said, it was Ketchikan, Alaska, and she said, you can come up here and do some work. You can go to logging camp, and they put you on an island so you can't spend your money. And so you could probably save up some money and get something going on. So I thought that was a good idea. And what prompted that was, every so often I'd go along and I would just not be happy with the drinking that was going on. I just would feel that it had to be something changed. I didn't quite know what should be changed. And drinking was never the problem for me. It never dawned on me that I had a problem with alcohol or that I was an alcoholic till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and you guys told me about yourselves, that I understood that I had the problem. Till then I always figured I was a little crazy, and the drinking kind of let that out, but the drinking was not the problem, But anyway, one of these times I felt I should change something, and, I've come to learn that it's called the geographic. So I thought I would go at my sister's house, so I went up there to Ketchikan, Alaska to go to logging camp, and turns out her father-in-law was a bartender. Yeah, perfect landing, huh? As a bartender, and so it was every other drink was for free, and the bar's open until 5 in the morning and reopen at 6. So I drank a lot up there, and they had some stuff called Everclear, which is 190 proof drinking alcohol, and I got introduced to that there. Used to drink that with Nesbitt's orange juice sometimes. It made you a little hoarse, but it worked, And I never gave a second thought about drinking that either. It could have burned a hole in you big time, but just did that. And I started work the pulp mill for a while, and then that whole thing got kind of funky, and so I moved back down to my lucky parents' house. Here he comes again. And I was there for a little while, working some, and just kind of bounce around and see what to do. And, my drinking's getting worse. And a friend of mine who lived in Point Loma, which is down by San Diego, and he said, well, come on down here. We're hanging drywall at this resort they're making up towards... I forget the name, La Costa. They were building that place at the time, and it was a big to-do. And so we were going, I was living down in Point Loma with him, and we were hanging the drywall at this resort they're making. And what he used to do on weekends was go down to Tijuana, and he had a girlfriend down there in one of those beautiful bars, lovely places, lovely women. A real good idea. So I started going down to Tijuana with him, on Friday nights. We go down there and spend the weekend and come back up. And then we got to thinking, why don't we just move down to Tijuana? Another career move for me. And so we went and rented this place by the Bullring by the Sea in Tijuana, and was hanging out there. And I'm incoherent around people speaking English, and I'm going down to Mexico where they don't speak much English at all. Wondering why I'm feeling even weirder. I was there for a little while, not too long, and some stuff started. I came back up here, and what was going on, some friends of mine were, what I know now, dying from the disease of alcoholism. But at the time, it was just God being lame again and killing these friends of mine, because that's the way life was. It was a whole stacked deal. A good friend of mine that I would spend some time, he used to surf with as a kid, and he split up with his wife, was living next door, and he went to commit suicide one night, and he turned all the ovens and all that stuff on and fell asleep. And then he woke up in the morning and forgot he'd done that and lit a cigarette. And yeah, it's pretty bad. Blew the apartment building, and he lived through it for a while. You know, and he walked outside and he was like a briquette, and that was pretty bad. And again, it was, you know, God being lame and being mean. You know, it didn't have anything to do with him being drunk all the time. But, you know, I didn't see that then. And he passed on, and so I just, you know, got a little deeper into the resentment there. And then my ex-wife's sister died soon after that, and it was the same thing, you know, same reason behind her death. But again, it was, here we go, you know, it's just more of this crap again. And my attitude was getting pretty low, and I started running with some guys who'd come back from Vietnam, just kind of hanging out with them. And my bike would run sometimes, and sometimes I wouldn't. But I was hanging out with these biker guys, and I enjoyed that because there was no question on why are we here today. You know, we're going to go to the office this afternoon. None of that stuff came up. It was just, let's just get it on and see how high we can get today and leave it at that. And so I started doing that. And right after that, I started, made a little run at being a heroin addict, you know. And, but luckily the people I was running around with were just as spaced as I was, and they couldn't get it on a regular basis. So I just did that for a while, and then, you know, just went away from it. I got hepatitis from it and got real sick. Back at Mom's house, Mom and Dad's house, turned yellow, doing all that stuff. And, you know, every so often things would be okay. And it was one of these okay periods when I was recovering from that sickness that my brother said, oh, my girlfriend has a friend who wants to go out on a date. And I said, oh, that sounds good. You know, let's do that. And that's where I met Larcene. We were on a blind date with her. And she's special right off the bat. As soon as I saw her walk off the front porch of her house there, you know, I just knew she was special. She wasn't special enough to make me stop drinking or anything like that, but there's just something special about her right from the get-go. And it's been great. And thanks. We just celebrated 37 years of marriage. The 11th of this month. And you know, you guys get the applause for that, because without AA and Al-Anon, this thing would not be going on any longer, because we did our best to thrash it behind this disease. You know, even though we tried at times, but it always got the better of us. Anyway, so we started going out, and those women, you know, she got pregnant again. You know, they do that and somehow. And so we got married, but I had this bohemian lifestyle that I had to hold up to. So I wasn't going to get married just because she was pregnant, man. You know, I mean, hey, man, what's the deal? So after our son was a month old, then we went and got married. And that's when I like to say our little war kind of started. She says, what do you mean little war? But that was my version of it, was just a little war started. Because she had some really weird idea, like I should go to work on a regular basis and not drink so much. She's really off the wall with this stuff. But whatever, honey, whatever. And we just kind of started our little war there, you know. I was doing my best to get a load as much as I could, and she was doing her best to try and do something really horrible, like have a nice family life, you know. But I couldn't see it. And it just kind of started going on from there. And my alcohol, looking back now, I can see it where the alcohol was not working like it used to. Because I was getting really bothered by the stuff I would do all the time. You know, before you could just, you know, do stuff and it doesn't matter. But I would get real disturbed because I knew I loved my wife and my son and then our second son, and I would always do these things to like destroy what I had going on. You know, why would I do that to people that I love? I love being with them, love being around them. Every so often I know now it's the obsession to drink, but I didn't know it then. I would just have to wander off and just be a shithead, so to speak. And it was getting really confusing to me. You know, and again, I didn't ever blame the drinking. And with alcohol was not the problem. Like I say, I just think the longer I was alive, the crazier I was feeling. And the alcohol just let this insanity out. And that's where I put it. You know, that's as far as I could come to really looking at it in the eye. And, it didn't get any better. I had a lot of opportunities in my life, but I wasn't able to follow through on any of them. You know, just because of what was going on with me. You know, it was more important to drink than anything else at times. And a lot of times I really didn't want to wake up at all, even though I had some good stuff going on around me, but that's just part of the disease. I never tried suicide, but I just kind of like gave up a lot of times on because it just seemed like a never-ending thing. Anyway, went along for a while, and she went to a doctor, or she talked to a doctor or something, and it was one of my periods where I thought, well, maybe I should try and, do something a little different. And she said she talked to this doctor, and they had some stuff called antabuse that you could take that would help you. Even though I wouldn't say it was a drinking, but this would help you keep you from drinking. So I started to take that. I took that for 2 years and didn't drink for 2 years. And don't do that. Do not stop drinking if you don't have a program. It was the longest 2 years of my life, I'll tell you, boy. Because I wasn't doing the blackouts, and that was a freaky thing too, because I didn't know what a blackout was. I just would miss a few days here and there, and who do you talk to about that? I couldn't talk to my dad or my brothers or my mother or anyone I was running around with about missing a few days here and there. So it was another thing just to like pile in there, to hide. And I did that. And so I did that 2 years on the antabuse. And what I did was I stopped drinking. When I first started, I stopped my drinking. And then this doctor had put me on Valium when I was like 18. And I had an open prescription for those things. And I was about 30 years old when I went on the antabuse, and I stopped taking the Valium and the alcohol and went into like this really freaky week and a half or so of, part of it was DTs, very strange, shadows. During the day, we're doing funny stuff, and I heard a dog bark, and I didn't know what it was, where to put the sound. I remember watching the Brady Bunch on TV, and they scared me to death. I mean, it was real to me. It's funny now, but at the time, it was just freaking horrifying. Because I just sat there in the chair, and I was, who am I talking to about this stuff? Nobody. And my body's doing all these twitches and jerks, and she's sitting around looking like, well, he's just done something again, And but after a while, it just got too crazy because it wasn't going away. And I ran to the doctor and said, hey, blah, blah, blah. And so he gave me some pills to take to calm that down. And the 2 years that I was on the antabuse, I felt at any time I was going to fall back into what I know now was that mental state of the DTs. Because I thought it was just something up here entirely. And so that 2 years I was like tightrope walking. Sometimes okay, but sometimes feeling like I would go back in that, and I didn't understand what it was. To me, where I put it with my thinking was that stuff I experienced, which were the DTs, I figured that's how you feel when you aren't loaded on something. That's what I had in my head. That if I wasn't on something, that's the way life felt all the time. That's how screwed up my thinking was. The keen alcoholic mind, strikes again. I tell you, it was really, really hellish. Anyway, so I went through that, and after a couple of years, the doctor mentioned that you're not supposed to take this stuff forever, so you could stop this and do some controlled drinking, whatever that is. But I heard the drinking part. That got really loud. Pa-ching! And that's when I started the last 9 months of my drinking. It was pretty much a blackout for me. And again, I didn't know what blackouts was, but it was pretty much a blackout for me, and I know that now. I would either wake up and have a drink in my hand and drink it, or wake up and have no drink and wander off to get it. That's all I remember. It was like I would ride along here, up here every so often. I would be able to take a look what was going on in front of me, and then I would disappear again. That's what was going on my last 9 months. It was none of this, let's have a barbecue on the weekend stuff. That was long gone. But I still wasn't blaming the alcohol. It was just I was getting crazier. We're getting closer here. And I remember coming out of a blackout one night in the living room. I'm standing there, and I hear myself, I'm like up here looking, and I hear myself laughing hysterically. And then that fast, start ranting and raving and cussing and screaming and yelling, then back in the blackout again. That's what was going on those 9 months. And I had a wife and 2 kids at home, And of course, when you're in that kind of a condition, you have to drive. So I went out, somewhere in there, and thank God the police arrested me for drunk driving. That's when things started to change for me. I remember coming out of the blackout in the police station. He just opened my eyes, and I heard this voice calmly and quietly say to stop fighting. And it wasn't the cop, it could have been the cop next to me, but that is not how I looked at it. It was no human being saying something, give me a direction or give me an order, do this or don't do this. And I heard this statement made to stop fighting. And when I heard that, I realized I had been resisting something. I didn't know what it was, but I agreed that I shouldn't be doing that, resisting that. And I blew on the breath thingamadoodler, and I felt myself relax in here, and I haven't had a drink since that night. I didn't know what exactly happened. It took me a long time sober in AA to understand what that was all about, because I didn't think, I'm never going to drink again. That was just a little experience that happened. I woke up in the morning in the drunk tank, and everything looked different to me. It was kind of like one-dimensional, is all I can say. This is just, I think, it's just another experience for me, another interesting day in my life, because it was kind of an odd thing that happened. And I tell you, it's amazing we get here, just amazing. Anyway, my wife came pick me up, and that was pretty amazing too, because she didn't say a word. Driving home in the car. She says God wasn't working in her life yet, and He was working pretty good in her life then. If you really stop and think about it, but I didn't know what was going on either. I mean, because usually I'm all pissed off because they've arrested a law-abiding citizen just for drinking. I mean, what's up with the cops? But I didn't have anything like that to say that morning. Something had changed, and I know now what it is. I didn't know it then. Went home and slept for a few days, and then came downstairs and said, that master of piece of understatement, I think I have a problem. I didn't say it with drinking. I said I got a problem. And she said, here's the number at this hospital. And so I called this place, and it turns out it was an alcohol deal, but I still wasn't alcoholic. I went over there, I went in. I just knew I had to do something different. Something had to change, and I was fresh out of plans and ideas. And so I went in this place, and thank God it was based on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous when I got there. First they checked me into the psychiatric ward to get in touch with my feelings, whatever that is. I said, okay, I'll go along with that, whatever you guys say. And so I was over in the psychiatric ward for a couple of weeks, wandering around there, and I still have the belt I made. She talks about, I still got that because I need to keep that. I got to hang in the closet, And it kind of, as I was getting away from being high, I noticed how agitated I get from time to time, and then that would cut off a little bit. So I knew something was changing. I didn't really know what, and I also got very grateful once I got into Alcoholics Anonymous that I didn't have to stay in the psychiatric ward, that I have my problems related to this disease, all my emotional upset and turmoil is caused by the disease of alcoholism and lack of spiritual growth in my life, and that can all be taken care of by working the 12 steps of this program. There's a lot of people in the psychiatric ward where I was, they don't have that option. That's not going on for them. They just give them Thorazine, and they have a hell of a time just recycling. I got to notice that. And I became very grateful. Once I learned about my disease for myself and how the recovery works for me, I'm real grateful for that. Anyone ever been to a Friday night dance on the psych ward? Have you ever done that one? That was an experience early in sobriety. I thought, oh no, I'm going back into that little hole I was in all that time. But there was one of the guy who was going over to the other side, and we were kind of hanging out in one end of the hospital there. And they said, well, we're going to have a dance tonight. And I thought, what are they talking about? But anyway, so we all went in this room. They ushered you in there, and there's all the poor ladies walking around with the Thorazine and shaking and drinking scalding hot coffee and, bumping into walls and stuff. And then there's a few of us drunks doing, this kind of stuff. And then they opened up the lockup where they keep all the teenage kids that are all jacked up on Ritalin and let them out. And then they start playing music. And I tell you, I was getting a little nervous. Oh, this is life, huh? Here we go. And but I settled down. But at first it was just like way strange for me. And anyway, soon after that, this lady came over from the other side of the hospital. And also they gave me a big book when I was over on the other end in the psych ward, and for some reason I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't trust, I don't know where this came from, but I didn't trust any of my thoughts on anything I was going to read that they were going to tell me about for some reason. I didn't think it was right for me to do that on my own. I think maybe that might have saved my butt too. I don't know where that came from, but I wouldn't read the book. I just said, okay, that's not time for that yet. Anyway, this lady came over and gave me 20 questions. And she started doing the, have you ever lost time from work on account of drinking? And I'd start to give her the old, well, you see, not really. And I started to give her the BS answer, and she'd look at me, and I looked at her, and we started laughing about it. All this BS I was trying to say. And I knew something was different because nothing had ever been funny about my drinking before in my whole life. It was all real serious business, but I still went through the whole 20 questions trying to give her this BS answer. And she just looked at me and smiled. And I knew something was different, and I knew this lady was special. It turns out she's a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So the following weekend, I went over to that side of the hospital and I got introduced to AA and you guys, and there's the answer. It hit me smack in the face. I didn't understand it. It scared the hell out of me, but I knew you guys were telling me the truth. You talked about drinking the way I drank, looking at life the way I looked at life, reacting to things the way I reacted, and drinking the way I drank. And I thought I was the only one doing that on the whole planet. Because, my family didn't seem to have to do that. A lot of my friends went on about their business, but I couldn't seem to be able to do that. And I thought I was alone until I met you guys. And you took the time to share your life with me, and it let me know that it's okay for me. All that stuff, I'm not alone, and I don't have to go back to doing that if I don't want, because you showed me what you were doing to stay sober. And I watched you real close just to make sure you weren't lying. And you're still not. I needed some truth is what I needed. I was way overdue for some truth, and you guys gave me that. And I grabbed onto it, and I've been working at trying to learn about this program since then, learn about myself and do some good things instead of that old behavior. I want to thank you guys for that. If it hadn't been for you people being here, I'd have just been dead meat. If you hadn't taken the time out of your lives to say hello and how you doing and tell me about you, the truth about you and what's going on, I'd be long gone. And for someone who didn't think they were alcoholic, it was killing me. And to find that out is a real relief. And so I just started, they said, start working the steps, whether they make sense or not. And get a sponsor. I got a sponsor right away. And started doing this stuff. Excuse me. And I remember my wife came when I first got out of the hospital, and I had never been out in the world without some kind of a shield, the alcohol shield. Driving home, I felt real exposed. And it's just because I wasn't used to being around life, not being drunk on something. And I remember I got home and I was real nervous around my family because I hadn't ever been around them sober. I knew I loved them, but I was kind of confused about the whole thing, and that upset me. I figured, what's up with that? But I just did what you told me to do. When you said when you get some fear in there, say a prayer. Doesn't matter what, say a prayer. I say the serenity prayer over and over again and turn things over to God. I didn't quite understand the whole deal, but I just say, okay, God, you take this. And I didn't end up blaming them for me feeling so off balance. I started to take responsibility for how I was feeling about myself and my life situation. And you guys taught me that. And thank you. So I started bringing the program home and driving my wife crazy because she told you earlier she was still pre-Al-Anon and, waiting for me to fix her, I guess you'd say. She was sharing. And luckily I got involved in a group who was into recovery for the whole family. I used to say, you guys got sick together, why don't you try getting well together? Give it a shot. And I used to, come home and, say stuff to her like, oh, let go and let God and things like that. And I didn't think it bothered her, but since we've shared it, and it just used to drive her nuts, But I knew I needed to stay sober, and I knew I was an alcoholic, and I did not want to go back to that hell I'd lived before, if I didn't have to. And so I just started working at this deal as best I could. And, I had to, they say, don't get in a relationship your first year of sobriety. Well, I was already married. I had a wife and 2 children at home. And so I had to start my relationship back over with my wife because I didn't know how to do a relationship at all. And And thank God we've been able to do that. You know, it got a lot better once she started going to Al-Anon, which is I was just about 2 years sober, and that's wonderful for that because we had something in common we could bond on, you know, these two programs, and it saved our butts. You know, I want to thank the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for giving me back my wife. You know, she's a wonderful woman today, and that's because of you guys showing her what to do with her life, and I really appreciate that. And yeah. I just want to stand there because it feels so good to just be alive and be in a good spot on the planet, you know. I just like stand there and just feel it, but I have some more speaking to do. So we started, you know, doing the deal. Like I say, we went to convention, started doing that stuff, and started going to a couples group and learning how to talk to each other for real, and you know, learn how to trust each other. And it was from hooking up with a sponsor and trusting him enough to talk to him about how I felt, and trusting him with that information that helped me to start trusting the world around me in general. You know, the steps are, it just amazes me how they're put together, you know, to heal us, whether we want to be healed or not, or whether we even think we need to be healed or not. I know if you work the steps, you'll evolve into something better. You know, that's just my opinion, but I've watched it happen. It's happened to me, and I've watched it happen to a lot of people. You know, it changes you for the better. You know, it's what I've always needed, and it's always held me in good stead, and I'm really grateful for that part of it. And you know, meeting friends, sober friends. We didn't have a lot of people we hung out with before I got sober, that's for sure. And it's odd getting to be around people. You know, I never did do that either. You know, meeting people, making friends, and doing all just the normal everyday stuff. You know, I enjoy that. It's very important for me to remember that I wasn't able to do that before I got to this program. You know, I've been sober over a little over 31 years now, and it's been really wonderful for me. Like I said, I started taking the program home right away because they said to do that. You know, if you have someone you're with, you know, why don't you try treating them like you'd like to be treated? You know, people are always complaining, oh, this is all screwed up and that's all screwed up, and you know, we'd come up with just, well, why don't you treat the person you're complaining about like you'd like to be treated? You know, treat your spouse like a newcomer. You know, start doing things like that, and it really puts things in a better focus. You know, and then you get, like I say, get to take responsibility for myself and not blame other people about how I'm feeling. You know, there's that one part in the big book where it says it's a spiritual axiom that whenever something is wrong or there's a wrong feeling going on, there's something the matter with me. You know, if I can remember that, it saves a lot of turmoil, because it always comes back to that. No matter how far I want to go out of the loop, it comes back to it. I have to work on me and my spirituality. And I want to thank you guys for teaching me that one. Hopefully I'll remember it. It's been good. A lot of things have gone on, you know, since I've been sober. You know, I like to feel good all the time, you know, but that's not reality, you know. But I do feel pretty good most of the time. I've always kind of been on, like we call a pink cloud, because I'm well aware every day of what it was like before I got to this place, and I try to never forget that. I think that little 2-year experiment with the antabuse and no program really drove it home with me, you know, to remember that, because it was like terrifying, and I was willing to settle for that, because it still was a little bit better than when I was drinking, you know, and I was willing to settle for life like that, and you guys have showed me that's not necessary. You have a wonderful free life now, by working these steps, and the steps will work you, you know, or work me. You know, doing the 4th step took me, I wouldn't say you should do this, but I wrote off and on for almost 3 years. What I'd do is I'd write a little bit, and nothing else would come out of me. This is just how it happened for me. But I knew I wasn't finished. So I'd go to more meetings, listen to more people, talk to people. Go to AA and you know, ask people what they were doing, listen to people sharing about their 4th step and this and that, and then I go back and write some more. And after about 3 years of that, I knew that I was finished. I remember I woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep, and went down and wrote the whole sex inventory thing, and just did that all with the columns and went through all that. And got ready to share that with my sponsor, and that's where that trust comes in, which helped me trust other people. Was I was able to go and give them that in my fifth step, and the world opened up. I don't know how to say it other than that. I remember we went over everything that I had written down, and when I left his house that night, I walked outside. It was a summer night, and I just remember walking out of the house and looking around, and there was like more room. I don't know how to say it. There was just more room around me, and I want to thank you guys for that experience. And I can't deny the existence of God, and the enemy is now the friend. And that's really good, because you always used to be, me against God, and what a waste of energy that was. And all God's ever been doing is just waiting for me to show up. It hasn't been such a hard thing, that He's ever put in front of me to do. It's the hard part is getting through all my negativity and being able to say hello to God and listen to what He has to say rather than my ideas, and I'm liking that. Things have gone on. I mean, both my parents have passed away since I've been sober, and I had a major surgery, and I went through different things like that, and I have some health problems now. But that's not my entire life. That's just things that went on. As life goes on. I've also had a lot of good stuff. I have some wonderful children and good grandchildren, and I have a really good relationship with my wife and most of the people that I know. I have a really good time around them, and we can't complain about that. But the point is, I was talking earlier with a friend, and we were talking about things that go on in life, and how I would not like to have to go through the hard times without having a program to work. How much comfort and strength we get from these steps and the people we know in this program that enables us to go through hardships that come along, and how grateful I am that I don't have to do that on my own. I can if I want to, but I choose not to now. I talked to you guys right away about what's going on with me. I'm not a secret anymore, and I'm glad for that, because that's not my idea. It's all stuff you guys showed me how to do to help me become a happy person. And I'm not. I treat my kids well now. My dad was always. I used to work with my dad all the time. He was a full-blooded German, real touchy-feely guy. But anyway, my son was working with me. We were doing construction work. And one afternoon, I found myself being my dad to my son. And I went, this is not right, man. I ain't doing this. So I just sat my son down and said, hey, I have to talk to you for a minute. I said, I just can't be on you without this stuff and I don't want us to go on working like this. And so we just started changing stuff and talk to each other. And you guys taught me how to do that. You guys showed me that that's the way to go. It felt like the right thing to do, and I was able to do that with him. And I'm really grateful for that. I've had a really good life, and I'm not such a big negative hole anymore. At least I don't think I am. You might want to talk to my wife. And it's been good. I really enjoyed hearing her. I've never followed her speaking. Usually I'll speak, and then she'll speak after me. But this was a really good experience. I don't want to go back and correct too many things she said, because I still have to live with her. So I can tell you it's a hell of a lot more fun now than it used to be. After I was sober a while, and she was in Al-Anon for a while. I couldn't say it at first, but after she was in Al-Anon for a few years and settled down a little bit, I remember mentioning to her, saying, honey, I really appreciate your effort, all that stuff you said to me, but I was in a blackout. I didn't hear hardly anything. But thank you for the effort. I appreciate it. And that was well received, and and it's good. I remember I made amends to her. It was kind of like, I just kind of said, well, sorry, honey. Because we both knew what had gone on, and it's been a living amends, since I've gotten sober. I haven't repeated any of those behaviors anymore, and it's a living amends we do on a daily basis. And that's really helped us quite a bit, enjoying our lives. And we try and spread it to our kids, like I was saying a little earlier. We like to just spread it around as best we can, because it feels right. And because of you guys, I'm able to enjoy my grandchild. I watch my granddaughter. She's 4 years old now, Ava. And I watch her every Tuesday for her parents, and that's really a kick. And if it hadn't been for you people, I would not be doing that. I wouldn't even be in her life. I'd never even got to know her. And kids are so right. Kids are so spiritual. It just blows my mind. I love my kids when I was still drinking, but it's much different when you're sober around children. And I see now what I missed with my kids. It's happened. It's okay. What's gone on has gone on. But it's so much better being sober and being awake through all this stuff and being able to feel the real stuff and not have the alcoholism pounding on me, taking me away from that. And I want to thank you guys for that. I'd like to thank you for inviting me here to share. And I guess it's time for me to sit down. I want to thank you for my life you've given me, because I'm a dead man without you, and I'm a very happy man with you. I have made a lot of good friends in this program, people I see from time to time. People I haven't seen in 10 years. It's like the friend I haven't seen in 10 years. It's like the friend I just saw yesterday. And it's wonderful. And you guys have given me that, and I'm well aware of that, and I never want to forget that. And I hope you all have as good a time on this thing as I do, and stay close and stay sober, and trust God. I went to a convention. There was an archive guy there, and he had a little card, and it was a prescription card from Dr. Bob. And on it had 3 things written in it. It was a prescription. It says for alcohol. I think it was either for alcoholics or for alcoholism. It was trust in God, clean house, help others. And then in handwritten above that was always remember this. And then the bottom was signed Dr. Bob. And I think that's a really good thing to do. I like his prescription for living. And thank you guys for sharing your miracle with me. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.